All right, we'll get going. I'll kind of start slow. So I'm Vince Ammirato. I always say my name a little different. If I say it all together, I say Vince Ammirato. If I write it out, I write it full. If I say just my first name, it's Vincent. I work for Command Partners. I'm the digital marketing director, and I'm primarily in charge of the analytics and reporting, as well as designing the strategies, making sure they're measured so these tactics are deemed successful or not. Like the video example that was asked earlier, like we would design a test for that to see which one drove the engagement better. So I edited my presentation because Frank was showing off his cute kids, so I had to get mine in there too. This is, it looks cute, but at any moment, this guy could be poking out an eye. So that is actually sort of fear in the other one there. All right, so one of my favorite quotes isn't this one. It is an Albert Einstein quote. It said, as the circumference of my knowledge increased, as the diameter of my knowledge increased, so did the circumference of my ignorance. The more you learn that you don't know. And then there's this guy, and he actually, a lot of people made fun of this, but it actually makes a lot of sense. This is what we deal with. There's a lot of stuff that we know, there's a lot of stuff we know we don't know, and there's a whole bunch of stuff out there that we're completely unaware of. And that's sort of my hope today, is I want you to take a renewed interest in this ability to drive data-driven marketing decisions, that you learn about new tactics and tools to do so, and that you leave here with more questions than you came in with, but they're better questions, and you take those questions back to your analysts or your marketing department or your IT department, whoever is in charge of your analytics program, and you refine it and you improve. Okay, so again, we're going to go through, this is the kind of loose agenda. We're going to primarily focus on Google Analytics. Who here is utilizing that platform in theirs? The people that didn't put your hands up, what are you using, out of curiosity? Omniture is typically the other corporate one, and nothing is maybe option C, I suppose. Okay, so what is digital analytics? And this is straight from Google. Okay, so digital analytics is analyzing quantitative and qualitative data so that you can improve your online experience with your customers to drive transactions both on and offline. And I have a tiny video that is not mine either, so I'll play that right now. Uh-oh. Well, then maybe we won't. Well, I'm not the video guy, so it's apparently he had his preloaded. That should have streamed right in because there it goes. If it stops one more time, I'll. Yeah.
If you're monitoring your website traffic only to see how many visitors you're getting, you're missing out on a wealth of information that can be used to assess and improve your online customer conversion rate. Here are 5 key measurements.
We'll just skip it.
That will help identify your website's strengths and weaknesses. 1. Identify your key performance.
Yeah. The only one I really want you to know about is KPIs. And so when we talk about instituting an analytics program, the first thing that we talk about are macro goals. Macro goals are the big sale. If you're running an e-commerce website, a macro goal is, did they convert and buy something? If you're running a digital marketing agency, did they come to our website and did they sign up as a lead so that our sales team could then follow up? Anything else is a micro goal. They all support that. An example in e-commerce would be if you were selling eyeglasses and you had a tool that would allow folks to style their own glasses with colors or et cetera. Did they try that? So they went through the steps. CarMax has a ton of micro goals in the real life. The first thing you do when you walk into the CarMax store is they have a queue of sales guys ready to go. That guy comes up and he says, hey, while you're looking, can I price your vehicle? So that's the first step. Then the second one is, hey, let's see how much you can qualify for. Now let's start looking at cars. And they know that as they go through these micro goals, as they get closer and closer to the end, the people that are following them through that pathway are more likely to end up in a purchase. And so you need to start with the big macro. Before you even institute an analytics program, you need to define those. And then you break it down into smaller parts that have measurable metrics that you can improve over time. So forget that video. That's the only one I was going to try. Okay. So I wanted to talk about some other tools outside of Google Analytics. One of the ones that we use extensively at Command Partners is Bitly. Bitly is an analytics platform, and in particular because it's very useful for multi-channel. You can, and you can see here, this is just our aggregate for all of our clients that we've been running right now through Bitly for the last month. And one thing that we're big on, because Command Partners, a solid half or 2/3 of our business is crowdfunding and startups. So we have a lot of campaigns that need to go elsewhere. And so we have what we call interstitials. And interstitials, let's see if I can scroll over here, are things like, I know this sounds weird, tub shrooms, but that's one of our clients. And so when we send the Bitly into this, and as soon as they go here, we're capturing them with analytics. We're dropping a cookie on their site, everything else. With Bitly alone, it's an okay tool, but if you combine it with a landing page, you can get more data. One thing I was trying to do last night before Time Warner killed me was I was going to design a quick web page to have you all go to where this presentation would be, and I was going to drop cookies on every single one of y'all's browsers so that I could follow you around the web and see where you go. But I wasn't able to be evil today, so that's all. All right, the other one that I really like is Clicky. Clicky is the great supplement to Google Analytics at an affordable price point. Can't recommend this enough. I was one of the early adopters. One of the things that I synced up with the president of Command Partners, he and I had both gotten to know the founder when the guy launched. Like I was probably customer 30 with this. Clicky gives IP level information. So that's a shortcoming of Google Analytics. Google Analytics does not allow you to store personally identifiable information. It'll never give you, at least not easily, one-to-one data. You can trick it a little, and you can bend the rules. We've had clients before that have passed email addresses into Google Analytics. That's technically verboten, and if they got caught with it, Google would kick them off the program. So it gives you all the general basics. This should look familiar as anything else, but again, it gives you this IP level information. So yesterday, Zagware was on our site. Now, not everyone, if you come in from your home network or anything, you're just going to, or from your phone, you're going to appear anonymous. Something that you might want to think about if you're doing competitor intelligence is it might be wise to hotspot in on your phone when you're doing that. Because otherwise, I'm going to be able to grab it. I'm going to see who's coming in. And on our end, from a digital marketing agency, we'll contact you and creep you out. We'll say, hey, we've noticed you were on our site. We noticed you looked at these pages. Are you interested in any of our services? Because we want to prove to our potential clients that we can do this for them. If you are not in the digital realm, it's more of a cold call opportunity for the sales force, and it's a slower add into it. So another reason why we like Clicky, and this is an old stat from ComScore. I want to say this is from like 2010, maybe even older. But 8% of the online population accounts for 85% of the display ad clicks. Like the article that was this, they said natural-born clickers. And what we find out is if you're running an expensive pay-per-click campaign, this might even go up higher because your competition might be coming after you and trying to deflate or run your budget low. So by gaining individual IP information, we could run a filter for this to say, hey, how many times did this IP come in through paid search and what was their engagement rate? And the standard that we use, if they've been in there 3 times in the last week and at least 2 of the times they bounced, we grab this IP address and we exclude it from the ad campaign so they no longer see it. So some of this technology can actually help you increase the efficiency of and the spend and the reach of your campaign itself, not just the conversion rate. Obviously, it's going to affect the conversion rate. If your competitors are clicking on your ads, they're not going to convert, but you're also getting a wider spread for what you're trying to reach. So that's the poor person's version of it. The other one is lead forensics, and this one is awesome. But it's very expensive. If you're interested, I think it's like $600 maybe a month. They keep kind of going up. We can get you a better deal. Just Again, this is very similar. One thing they do is they eliminate all the anonymous ones. So if it shows up as AT&T Uverse or Verizon Fios or any of those, they're not on here. They're only going to show you the Zagware type of one that I showed you in Clicky. So it's a much more filtered view, but it's also only the actionable data. So they're doing it for you. They also have linked into credit ratings. So if you've got if a large company connects to your site, you can start seeing, hey, how are they doing? What's their, and this is in pounds or euros, but you get the point there. And lastly, and this is not something you need to, this is free. If you're not using this right now, I suggest you go to it's connect.data.com. And this is sort of like the Hoovers for individuals, right? And they do offer a free one. They also offer a pay. The free one is very clever. You earn points, like if I wanted to update Roy's information, which is all correct on here, I would earn more points to do searches. So this is a data collection tool for them. But it also benefits you. You can get in for free and try it out. And then I think it's maybe like a couple $100 a year to have, and it's like kind of pay-as-you-go searches. So when I was talking earlier about sort of getting this IP level information, and you don't want to creep the people out, you can go in, you can take that information, go into connect.data.com, and start getting a list of the decision makers in the organization. And then you can do a soft call. Say, hey, and your business lines up with what my agency provides or what my business provides, and we think we would be a good fit. You don't mention that you saw them on your site. You don't try and creep them out at all. You just use it as an informed cold call for your sales force, and hopefully your sales team knows how to do those. All right. So, but we're here mainly to talk about Google Analytics. One thing I highly recommend, and we're doing this at Command Partners, we're taking every single member of the organization that is showing an interest, and we've had about half, and we're certifying them. It's a very easy test, and I'll share those resources with you at the end. It's like 90 minutes to take. I accidentally logged in as Roy and took it for him, and when I realized I was doing that, I just started answering the questions however I wanted to. It took me 15 minutes, and he still got the highest score in the company. And that's happened 2 times now. 18 months ago, I accidentally logged in as Roy. So it's free for the most part. They also offer a premium version. You don't want to get into that. It's expensive. It removes some of the restrictions. You get a lot more import, export, portability. But other than that, if you have somebody that's certified and experienced, you can pretty much do the premium version. This gives you, they handle the implementation. Going to premium is much like going to Omniture. So no one said they were using Omniture here, but the main difference is Google Analytics kind of comes pre-formatted. The reports are there, the metrics are defined, everything's calculated. Omniture, you set it up. You have a consultant that kind of sets, and so in a way, if you don't have a platform already and your organization is large enough to afford it and you don't have an internal team driving it, Omniture might actually be the better choice because you're going to get somebody that is familiar with the platform, that embeds with your company, that learns your business objectives, and then turns them into online metrics. We can do that too. We just do it with analytics. And I'm an educator. I firmly believe that anybody that's interested in learning this can learn it. It's that old analogy, like you only use 10% of your brain, which isn't true. I think most people only use about 10% of what's there on Google Analytics. It's amazing the amount of data that you can both pull in and put out from there. All right, so this is, again, it's just the bullet points for analytics. And the big one is you're going to hear me using KPIs all the time. These are the metrics that reflect your progress towards achieving your macro goals. Okay. So how to use Google Analytics, in particular dashboards, because I didn't want to go into the big setups. I didn't want to go into events and how to push them. I will give you some resources on that, but I felt like this is more of a marketing presentation and less of a technical one. So in the end, when a gentleman, I'm sorry, was saying he just gets the reports and then eventually you influence that process. This is what we do as well. We meet with the stakeholders. Right now we're working, pushing a site up for Goodwill. We're redoing their site. I'm meeting with their ELT board to just, each one of their silos, what metrics are important, how can we create the dashboards, and more importantly, how can we put the hooks on the website to those dashboards to provide the data that they're asking for. So some examples of the dashboard. This is just general overview. Here we've got how many new users have come in, how many total users, where they're coming in from, what browser, which you can't see Internet Explorer there at the top. This is a healthcare organization, and internally they have only Windows Internet Explorer. You can get a little deeper, though. You can start looking at behaviors. I'm sorry, this is a little down, too, and sort of blurry. You can see what country, what city, what their favorite browser is, what devices are they connecting with. Notice iOS is up there just dominating. One of the weird dichotomies is how much Android outsells iOS devices, but the usage statistics, despite this 2-to-1 or whatever they're touting, almost evens. Like the amount of devices that are connecting mobily are equal. And the engagement and the usage on the iOS goes up way higher. It's a kind of a given during the holiday season that iOS devices are going to create more transactions than Android. It's starting to level out, and I have a graph to kind of show you that in a little bit. But this is important for your designers or your developers. What's the screen resolution that they're coming in from? What experiences are you designing for? One of our conundrums with Goodwill is and it's a problem we'll solve. But internally, they're all using the old Microsoft Surface, not the Pro, not the Surface 3, and that thing renders every web page at 150%. So the resolution's kind of small, and then it blows it up to 150%. So when we go and present and we show them stuff, we get this square screen, and we have to make sure internally that it works for them, but we also have to make sure that they're aware that they're pretty much the only ones that are connecting to the website with that device, at least in any significant numbers. So I told you I was going to show, this is going back to Clicky. They do a cool thing where I think they're up to maybe 400,000 or 500,000 websites that they're installed on. They anonymize all that data and aggregate it into some market share. So this is similar to ComScore, similar to other ones, but they're using hard data. It skews a little towards US. So if you're in the global market, this might not necessarily be an accurate representation. When I first started doing this 6 years ago, Chrome didn't even exist, and you can see Chrome's the one way up at the top now. You can always see where Microsoft Internet Explorer is, and do you know what those dips are? Anyone want to guess? It's the weekend. You go home and you don't use Internet Explorer. And look, I'm thinking this one's Safari. Safari's got the opposite. You go home and you log on to your iOS device and you sit on the sofa and you browse with your iPad. And Chrome's just consistent across the board. This is another good one to look at. Mobile operating systems. Again, these have now quite equalized. You can see occasionally Android's popping up and over, but this is the amount of devices that are connecting. They're about equal, despite the sales difference, et cetera. So, you have to look at the data to make your decisions. Don't listen to the snippets that you hear in sales, and maybe the CEO is going to be like, well, Android outsells 3-to-1. We got to definitely focus on that. And you say, no, wait. Look at the data first. You back it up. And then lastly, because Frank mentioned Google, I threw this one in at the last minute. This is the search engine traffic that's being generated here. It is insane. If we did it for mobile, I think at one point it went over 100% on here. So, take that with a grain of salt. But down here is Bing. Down here is Yahoo. And then whatever, I think Ask Jeeves kind of is in the basement or something. So, again, I used to say, being number one on Bing is like being number one on Bing is like being number one on Google every 10th day. And it's still about true. The traffic, you have to be careful because, weird things are happening now, like Siri, if you're searching with her, she's going to default to the Bing search engine. So if you completely ignore Bing, now you can change it, but if you completely ignore Bing, you may be missing some of the affluent folks that aren't necessarily technically savvy, that are using voice-based searches. One example is For the longest time, Siri misspelled Ballantine with an I instead of an N, instead of I instead of a Y. So one of our clients is real estate. We bought a lot of ads in Bing just for the INE, and they got really low clicks for that. So you don't want to ignore them. The whole thing about digital marketing is you want to appeal to everyone on every channel. But in general, we still go towards a Google-centric if we're going from a search marketing perspective. You're not going to get the traffic from any of the other search engines. All right, so again, going back to the dashboards, you only report on what matters. And this is a quick dashboard that we had set up for a CEO. He just wanted to see some metrics on, and you can change, by the way, if I was doing this live, you could change the dates and all these dashboards would shift. You could do comparisons and it would show it. If I said, hey, show me this month versus last month, you would see the % change, and that's the type of stuff that CEOs like. If this was an e-commerce site, we would have the revenue per order, revenue per click, all these metrics that help to get them excited. For your writers, it's good to see which content is coming in. We had another one over here on which one of those is a landing page actually converted, so you know which content is being the most effective. But in general, the beauty of the dashboards is, again, it lets you take some complicated data sets and cater it to the audience so that they see what they need to see so they can make the best decisions. All right, so what can we track? This is the general stuff. Obviously we can page views. We can see events I'll get into. Goals we'll get into in a bit too. You can track them. And then demographics. Events is where it gets exciting. You can do so much more nowadays. We have a client right now where they're using an outside lead form. So when data comes in, they come into their website and they're using it's either Wufoo or one of the other ones. But we have it so the cookie itself pulls the information of the refer and passes it over to Wufoo, because we were running into this problem where the lead would come in, he knew it came in from the website, but because it was being recorded in Wufoo, there was no measurement of did that come from PPC or SEO or direct or email. And now that shows up in a field. And that's important to know, is that analytics, especially with the Google platform or any of them, it collects the data, but you can also have it push the data back out. And there's intelligence that you can do with that, and it can influence a lot of different things. For example, with events, and again, I'll get this to you so you have the links here, because these are some great how-to videos. Tracking downloads. A lot of people like to use the HubSpot-esque method of marketing. Hey, read this cool little 250-word thing, download our white paper. You can do this without using HubSpot. You can track the PDF downloads on your website and see. Now, HubSpot offers other things too, like a progressive journey for the client. When they come back to your site, it knows who they are and what they've downloaded, and it allows you to score them. So it is lead forensics. So there's a lot of different ways you can mix these tools together. Video plays. That was on there before, Frank. I knew about this. So it's not just, is it being played? It's 10% of the view. 20% of the time. Did they view it, did they view 75% of the video and hit stop? That can help you decide, because the length of the video is going to depend on the client or on the market that you're in. And we may not know what appeals best, but if you can tell that everybody's seeing your 3-minute video, but they're only getting halfway through, shorten your message down to 1.5 minutes and get to your sales pitch by then. And so the phone calls. There's a lot of services out there that'll do it for you, like sort of all in one. We're really high on Twilio at Command Partners. It is not an analytics platform. It's just a voice over IP service. I think 2 years ago, we ditched our entire phone service at Command Partners. All of our lines go into Twilio now and then forward to where they need to be. You can purchase a phone number, a local, for $1 a month. You can purchase 800 numbers for $2 a month. And it's a penny a minute for it to handle the calls. Now, obviously, if you're sending it to your phone, you got to pay your airtime, et cetera. But Google Voice does some similar things. This gives you more control. In particular, this tutorial, again, I'll share these with you. This tutorial shows you how you can take those phone calls, and it still routes to who it's supposed to go to, but it also triggers an event in Google Analytics that's a trackable goal. You know, and this is provided for, this was raw, this is how to do it, but even like AdWords does that now. If you're advertising with click to call, they'll assign you a number. Now, one thing to be aware of is, you know, if folks are writing down your number with AdWords, that number is not yours, right? You know, it's kind of dynamically routed around. So some folks, it's really hard to convince C-level executives to put a different phone number on the website. But you can have a different contact number based on how they got in. Did they come direct? Just display our number. Did they come in via organic search? Give it another number. And so with Twilio, because they can buy them and own them, we found that that sort of gets over the hump or the hesitancy to do this. But as marketers, or those of you that are in agencies, or those of you who are trying to prove the ROI, this is a valuable tool. You know, for $30, $40 for the year, you could purchase a phone number for each individual sales guy as they go to a conference. And you could start seeing, hey, still route to your sales guy, but you can see, hey, did they pass out their card enough? Did they engage enough to drive actual action to our company? As opposed to them just calling them and them writing some stuff down, or it can be tracked and then verified. You can even add a whisper mode to this so you can listen in if you really want to creep people out. And then this is the last one. I was actually trying to set this up last night too. You can track button clicks. So, you know, an event could be anything on the page. An event could be, did they scroll 2/3 of the way down? An event could be, did they view the video? But and this is technical, but if you're utilizing Bootstrap, which is just a framework for doing UI or UX elements on a page, there is just 5 lines of code that you can put in the header of your website, and it's on this guy's SparkVault's website. And it will tell you, it'll automatically start creating the events. So if you label your buttons with, download our deploy ebook, that'll actually show up as an event automatically. There's not a lot of coding, just again, 5, 6 lines. It's in this guy's article. And if he were in the room, I would not be the smartest, I guess, because he's wicked in general. All right, so that's all of that. I kind of wanted to go in, demographics. Demographics. So Frank said something else, that stuck, and it was, do you believe that everybody is your ideal client or everybody's a client for your services? And no, that's foolish. But you should have personas built. You should know who, in general, the age group, their affinity categories, et cetera. Now, this is relatively new in Google's world. I want to say about a year old. It is not probably the data you can provide in terms of what's coming in, but you can get looks of, hey, what's the age group for us? We're a younger company. I think I am the oldest at 42. No, Suzanne's got me beat. That's right. And I can say that because she's not here. But in general, we have a lot of folks coming in because we do Kickstarters, we do Indiegogo, and so they're coming through our site, and this matches up. Gender, yeah, we're going to skew a lot more to male. I kind of hate how they reverse those, but that's female, that's male. Unfortunately, it's a fairly male-dominated industry. But you can also look and sort of like, what affinity groups do they attach? And so what Google's doing here is by enabling these demographics reports on your website, you're signing up for what they call their double-click advertising network, but you're not displaying ads. All you're doing is you're sharing that data. So if I go to CNN and then TechCrunch, and they're all running the display ads on the side from Google, I'm collecting this dust, this information that helps influence this when I come to other sites. And other people that have been to Command Partners are going to be labeled probably as technophiles and some other, shoppers, shopaholics, because we do, again, a lot of 1999 pledge now kind of things. And we've got a fairly significant amount of real estate partners that we work with. So this indicates who's coming across. And it's, again, if you have a persona that you've built to, and you can analyze this data, you can start, and you're seeing which content is the most important, you can start developing strategies to try and shift the traffic that's coming to your site so this lines up with what you feel is the profile of your ideal client. Best people to talk to about that is your in-the-field salespeople. They know. And so you ask them to start profiling for you if you haven't done it already. All right, so now what? First thing is set Six Sigma-like goals. Again, as an example, we want to reduce something or increase something by this much in this amount of time. Brainstorm, let the C-levels weigh in. There are no bad ideas. And then you can test. Another piece of the Google Analytics platform is the ability to run tests. You can set up on-site experiments so that a certain percentage of your visitors are going to see one, and I'll move out here. And another percent will see the other side. So if you had a question about whether humor was appealing to something as serious as sustainability, and the C-levels were like, no, you say, give me 10%. Let me have 10% of the visitors to try this out. I respect your opinion, and I don't want to go against the grain, but let's take this chance to do something that other people aren't to see if it can make a difference. Let's try and stand out. Then improve it. What time of day do customers sign up as a lead? Well, if you know that there's a specific time of day, you should probably be boosting your advertising spend around that time. You should probably make sure that your sales team's ready to answer calls and respond. What's the temperature in their locale when they decide to purchase? Yes, you can track this. You can pull open weather data and enter it into Google Analytics, and you can see what the temperature was. We have a campaign for a mattress cooling pad that over the summer was going to, we would double the bid whenever in our 10 target cities, anytime it got over 90 degrees at 8 o'clock at night. Can't sleep, too hot? Check this out. All right, so what OS device is most likely to abandon the cart? Improve usability. Maybe there's a language group that's connecting. Maybe you didn't realize that you had a large Spanish-speaking population that was interested in your product, and you've been relying on just the natural kind of flaky Google Translate. Might be worth it to try and build that Spanish persona and get a translation in that's professional and eloquent. And what channels, and this is the big one, what channels are most effective at driving conversions? That's kind of where Bitly came in a little bit. Just trying to make sure. And in the end, we want data-driven action. Sorry, I'm a nerd. All right. All right. So how can we learn more? First off, I mentioned there's this guy when I was younger and had, I don't know, more hair. But the Google Analytics Academy, they have Digital Analytics Fundamentals class. Again, one of the easiest tests you'll take. We went through the training as a group, and then we would have 2 people take the test at a time. And we used it. It used to be open book. They used to give you 90 minutes over 5 days. You could pause the test at any time, and you could mark the questions that you were unsure of. You could screenshot them, you could research it, and then you could get 100%. They've changed it somewhat, but they've also dumbed down the questions. This is almost a sales tool for Google. They just want, actually, analytics is a sales tool for Google. I always, when the self-driving car thing came out, I was like, that makes sense. Like, why? Why would Google get into self-driving cars? And it's obvious, right? Because that's the one time we can't view ads and act on them is when we're driving. So if Google's able to get advertising messages into our face and we're no longer a distracted driver, they're giving the ability to have more reach for their ads, and they also know where you are at all times. So, and that's one of the big ones right now is truly geolocated data. And there's some numbers that have been thrown around that we only know about 20–30% of people where they really are. If I come in through Verizon, sometimes it might look like I'm in Virginia. So again, there's the platform principles. All of these are Google Analytics tools or training facilities, and then there's the individual qualification, and this is what we're all doing right now. This is free, but it takes a little bit of setup to do. Anybody can sign up for what's called the Google Partner Program. Now, you don't have to be an agency, although we prefer if you are. But any organization can say, hey, we want to get in the Google Partner Program. You start adding people to your organization, and as soon as you add them, they can take the whole suite of all the Google tests for free. And again, Analytics is a sales tool. Google is so high and so confident that their products are going to deliver value that they're willing to provide what this used to be, what was it called? Urchin. Google Analytics was Urchin, I wouldn't think, but 8, maybe 10 years ago, maybe even more now. Urchin was $500 a month, minimum, to start. Urchin was like a competitor with Omniture. Google bought it, made it free, because they want you to see the value in their products. Now, they also show you the value in other ones. They're not so myopic, or otherwise we wouldn't use them. We would look for something that gave us full channel intelligence. And let's talk a little bit about best practices. And I'll actually open a screen and show you this in a bit. When you engage with an agency, or if you don't already have analytics set up, you need to be very careful, because there are ways that Google has it set up so that individual companies have their multiple web properties with multiple views. They only allow you to add 50 companies or 50 accounts. So some agencies will create accounts like saying clients A and B, clients C and D. And so all of them are technically on one account, and then the properties are over here in the middle column. You don't own your data if the only access you have is to the middle column. They do. And it's very difficult to transfer. It's getting easier, but you have to be careful how it's set up. I would encourage you, what we typically do, and this is how you can get around the 50-person limit. We set it up in their name, and then we add ourselves to their account. And then if you do it that way, you can go up to 100. And now we're at that limit, and we're having to drop people. All right, so you need to set up Google Webmaster Tools. Oh, and I said ideally you're using Google Tag Manager. How many of y'all know tag managers at all? Any hands? Any nerds? Okay, I won't talk about it too much then. But Tag Manager, it used to be, hey, I want to install this new tracking script. I need to know whether or not my Twitter ads are being effective or my Facebook ads, and here's my Facebook conversion pixel. Send it down to development. Development, whether forks it and adds it, tests it, and puts it back in. Tag Manager is like a suitcase. It's already there on your website, and it fires all of your tags at once in a way that will not break your website. If a tag misfires, it just doesn't show. There's very little danger of it taking it out. So by utilizing Tag Manager, you can take a degree of complexity and technical prowess out of the equation and just learn the Tag Manager platform. And they have tons of pre-built tags already for for lead forensics, for Omniture. There are millions of different platforms you can add already, and there's the ability to also add your own custom ones. The other beauty of this is sometimes you only want to track certain aspects of your website. You can create firing rules so that, hey, I only want to see traffic that came in versus organic, fire these tags. Folks that visit my blog, fire these, etc. So I was trying to explain it to a client of mine today, because we've already done it for one of his properties, and we're talking about doing it for a couple of his others. And he's very much an in-the-trenches guy. In fact, it's Tropical Foods Chat. He does a lot of his own work, and this is perfect for him. Because he went to try and install, I'm going to out him a little. He went to go install Google Analytics, and he went through every page of Healthy Home Market and put it on there. And then Lisa informed him to just put it in the header, right? And so he saved a bunch of time. One step further is setting up Tag Manager. And that way, if analytics ever changes or he wants to add new tracking, he never has to go back in, because if you screw up the header of your website, you can break the whole thing. And so, depending on how skilled they are, you don't necessarily want them going in there. And then going on to Google Webmaster Tools, a really nasty thing happened in 2008. Google switched from HTTP to HTTPS by default, especially if you're logged in. And what we started seeing on our organic side was a lot of things called not defined. So, tons of folks were coming into our website, and the keyword was not defined. And that's brutal, because you don't know which phrases are converting, and the sample that you have is only sort of from I look at the folks that are using HTTPS on Google as more technically savvy. And so the folks that are doing that might not, they're the ones that don't know how to filter their friends list and post message, et cetera. So you may not be getting the best data. You're sort of getting the uninformed folks on how they're searching. But with Google Webmaster Tools connected in, you can still see those queries. It's not going to be all of them, but you will at least get what position am I ranking in on average. You can even look at it by country or locale. And it's not going to translate into this keyword created this goal. They're still separating that, but you can still look at the keywords that are coming in and how you're ranking, how many impressions that you get versus how many clicks and what you could do. Let's say that you were in the top 3. You should be getting, if you're number 1, you should be getting at least 50% of the clicks, especially even higher when they had the I'm feeling lucky button. If you're not, but you're still at number 1, something's wrong. Your search result is your ad. What it says in that blue text and then underneath it, we always try and tell our clients, make sure you, especially if you're in sales, make sure you have enough characters at the end to have the complete phone number. But if you're seeing that it's not getting clicked, but you've got that top rank, time to change that meta description in the title of the page so that it is more compelling and it attracts more clicks. One of the things we did for a real estate client early on, and it helped with the click-through rate, is the very first message that we said was search without registering. We borrowed from Remax International. They were big on that. They stopped because they're forcing registration now, which I think is foolish because you get a lot of Mickey Mouse leads. But by displaying that one message, we increased our click-through rate. And by increasing our click-through rate on Google, Google was suddenly saying, hey, folks like this search result. Let's start moving them up. Now, conversely, if you lie, if you're not authentic, and you say search without registering, and the first thing they see is a registration page, they're going to hit the back button. And just like a click is sort of a vote to go up, a bounce, which is a single page view visit, is a vote to go back down. Now, this isn't the only thing. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of secret sauce recipes for Google's algorithm. But usability and who's coming through, even the site speed, which Google Analytics can provide insights on that, which pages are loading slow, which pages are not loading completely, which browsers are having trouble with which pages. Google wants your page to load in under 2 seconds. Because if you click on a Google search result and it doesn't load, that's a reflection on Google's service. You sent me to another blank page, Google. I'm sitting here staring at it loading, and you get mad and you go back and you use Bing for a day. Right? It takes only 15 to 30 minutes if you know what you're doing. But again, the setting up the goals, and again, these are the macro ones, like what's selling, who's signing up, what channels. We recently went through on Command Partners and split our lead goals into based on which drop-down they had selected. Because before we were sort of just looking at it going, we got so many for this silo and so many for that. Now we know exactly when they fill out the form because that's a required field. It's interesting, we were talking about short versus long form as well, and this has come up with other clients. You don't know. You really don't. For B2B, I've been proven wrong. We always think for conversion rate, short form. Just ask for their name, email address, phone number optional, submit. You got them. It gets a lot of leads in, but it also gives you a lot of sludge that you have to go through to get to the actual sales. So I used to always think that was right, and then again, Chad proved me wrong by adding like 20 fields against my advice, and his lead quality went way up. So don't always think that shorter is better. It really depends on the market and what you're trying to go for. In B2B, long-form content is king, still king. Because the ones that are going to take the time to go through and really go through your full content are the ones that are going to have a meaningful conversation with you when it finally comes person to person with sales, because they're well-informed and educated. Again, set up dashboards to what you think are the most important data points. And then you can also do these as emails. You can set up alerts. You can say, hey, anytime my bounce rate goes over 20%, email me. Anytime my site speed drops down into the 10-second to load page, notify IT and tell them to get off their butts, which they're, all right. And then the other one that we're really high on is the Google URL Builder. Have you all, anybody here used this at all? It is a great 1-2 punch. You use it. 1-2 punch with Bitly. So Google URL Builder, and let's see if this will load. If it doesn't, I will be angry. So the Google URL Builder, and eventually you'll get good enough you don't need this. This is just a tool to help you learn. You're sending them to you got a campaign running. You're sending them to a landing page. Look, they're still using Urchin in here from 10 years ago. But you're trying to get them to download. And so then you're going to go through and you say, okay, where are we going to place this link? Are we going to place it in a newsletter that we send out? And you could name it for your B2B newsletter or potential newsletter, et cetera. What's the medium that we're using? Is it going to be a banner or a site takeover for a sporting site? Or is it going to be, again, in an email? And then the only other one that's required is the campaign name. Hopefully, if you're doing an advertising strategy, you're labeling your campaigns and so you can you measure them. And then the other two are going to let you differentiate. And so you enter all this information in, and what it does is it cranks out. I'll just do this real quick. We'll say demandpartners.com. I got to probably put the HTTP up there, right? And we'll say that we're sticking with. Let's do Google, and we'll just use all their marketing and product. All right. And what did I miss? Oh, I guess I erased that somehow. How did that not take? It hates me. Yeah. Oh, okay. Hang on. I just want to show this one piece because, again, this was a battle. I don't know why it hates me. Anyways, the point is at the very bottom, it's going to yield out a code that's going to look like it's going to have this. Like it'll have all these little campaigns in it, and all of these UTM encodes come in onto your Google Analytics so you can say, hey, which campaign, which term, and it drives it through. And then you can shorten it. You can shorten it with Bitly. And so you know, not only that, who's clicked on it from which area, and then it comes in and it's sort of hidden. We combine this with an interstitial, and you get this full holistic view of how they're getting to your website. And I think that's all the time I had. Let's go back to presentation. All right, so the key takeaways, because I got it, Frank told me to shut up. So plan extensively, but you really should be, this should be very easy to identify your macro goals. It's why you exist. And the other thing is Joe's preached this for a long time at our company, and Frank kind of did it before. When you describe what you do, it's a lot better to say who you help, not what you do. And so, how can you help? What does it define into these goals and your overall business objectives? This should be something set at the C level. This should be something that's corroborated with sales. Choose the right analytics tools, and it's not just one. We typically are at least the three I showed you, Bitly, Clicky, and Analytics are pretty much standard for everything. For some of our higher demand B2B clients, lead forensics is invaluable. Again, it's Google Analytics is the way to go. And there's so much out there. There's a guy named Avinash Kushek that has a analytics on an hour a day where you can learn analytics, and his advice is amazing. He has one of his things is the rule of 3 whys. Anytime somebody says, hey, we need to report on this, say why 3 times. And if they can get through those 3 whys, it's probably a good metric. And then always be on the lookout for updates. I've done this presentation or a similar one through, I used to teach at UNC Charlotte. We have a day there where we're going through digital marketing. The platform and the interface has probably changed. I stopped teaching last year, end of 2014. We've already had 2 interface changes. So you have to stay up to date. It's sort of protecting job security for me, I guess. And that's it. All right? Any questions, or do we have time, or no? Yeah? Anything? I know that was a little nerdy. It's hard to do analytics to marketing people, but nope. Come on, Frank. I asked you one.
How long did it take you to grow a real beard instead of this pitiful dog?
I lived in the woods for a year.
Actually, you inspired some thought on my end. Just I gotta get more data driven too.
How many of y'all are using WordPress out of curiosity? All right, there are some really great tools with WordPress. There is a Google Tag Manager tool that you can put in with very few lines of code, and then on top of that, it helps guys like him because if you use it's called O-Embed. It's built into WordPress for popular platforms like Vimeo and YouTube, and you can name all the other ones, and it will automatically give you that data of did they hit play? Did they get through 25%? Did they get through 35%, et cetera? Sorry, you were going to ask a question?
Well, I was just going to ask your experience with, one of the things we struggle with, we're an agency, is just when we've got Google Analytics, we control a lot of the digital side, but if we're dealing with a media agency who's running campaigns and they've got their own data from their different tools that they're aggregating and just bringing it all together. Currently, we're using Tableau.
Okay.
To do that. It's working, but it still doesn't, since we don't control everything, it's hard to control the picture and be able to make sense of it all. So I don't know if you had any experience or recommendations on.
Yeah, so there's intelligence events is a part of the Google platform that most other folks, if they're saying, hey, this is our results, you need to live with them, you could give them the API to pass that data directly into Google Analytics. The other way to do it is to make sure that if it's a campaign, like you're paying, paying YP. Let's just say you're using yp.com display ads. You could make sure that the destination URL has those UTM codes on there, and then that's passing the data in as well. It is a difficult picture, like that's why I say there's usually not just one tool to do it all, but more and more Google is opening it up. It used to be that only the premium platform would allow you to download or pull data out, and to me, like that's there was like rocks that I had for the company. One of them was learn to pull outside data sources like a call, Twilio. Like using that as a callback. You could give a callback URL so that when they click, like the actual click link takes you to the campaign page, but there's also a callback URL that fires to Google Analytics. And so that was my first one, was actually getting new data in that wasn't being recorded by the analytics code itself. The second one, in the higher level, is being able to pull that data back out and use it, and then maybe, and we're getting there. That's sort of what we did for Chad when we were like, hey, let's get this data into your WooFoo forms to get more informed. That would be the next piece is maybe if you're using Tableau, you could run the API in reverse and have it populate a general field. I'm not familiar with that one. We used SumAll for a while, and that was another tool that we found with. But again, what it does is it's a dashboard of dashboards. Like it's still not, you're seeing like, hey, here's this campaign, and you're still not able to like line them all up and say which one's the most effective universally. You still need an analyst. You still need people like her. Yes, sir.
This question is both for you, Vince, and Frank, and thank you very much for your presentation.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
We help companies like Coca-Cola get their Dasani to the retail shelves so that it looks perfect when you buy it at the store. Scott's Lawn get fertilizer to the big box stores, and Best Buy get their consumer electronics to the store that you purchase for Christmas through industrial-sized packaging.
Okay.
It protects pallets of products in trucks and ocean containers.
Cool.
We're going to start building video content here. What channels do we start with? LinkedIn, YouTube, obviously. We're going to start with 2 or 3 channels because we sell and we do our marketing. We wear a lot of hats. Where do we start?
Can I start real quick, and then you can talk about the channels? I'm really glad you brought that up because that brings up sort of, I like taking things and flipping them over. You like to try and see, hey, which channels are driving sales? But if you start with the sale, which ones are the, like go backwards and say, hey, these are the clients that we're appealing to. Here's how they're coming in. There's got to be more like them out there. One thing that we've done for a long time, and it's now a fairly standard strategy, there's remarketing now. Someone comes, and I was going to get you all if I had my website up. Like someone comes to your website, and suddenly they start seeing your ads all over on all the web, right? For new clients, I don't care if those ads are clicked. Because if, let's say you come into my website, we plant the cookie, and then you go on to 4 or 5 other websites that are related to your industry. I now have a list, because even if my ad impresses, if my ad shows, that website that you went to shows up in my report. And now I can look at that website as a potential target for trying to place ads to the general population, put a video on it maybe, and just go backwards from there. Like start with the personas that are generating sales and figure out where they are. Like you could, I used this phrase earlier, you could honeypot them. You could do a direct mail or an email blast only to the folks that are your best clients. You send them to a web page that only they can get to, and suddenly you've got just your best clients cookied and knowing where they're going. You got just the folks that have transacted and closed.
That term is called honeypot.
That's mine. But I make up words. I think.
Trademarks, don't.
Yeah, I make up and I mispronounce them.
You send an email, it's only going to go to a website that they're going to find.
Yeah, the link on that is only, the only way to get to it would be like an unlisted page, a landing page, maybe even something that's protected, and the password to get in it is in the URL itself.